Hello, my name is Brent Weaver, and I am the Learning Assistant Coordinator with K-State First, the university's first-year program. I get to teach wonderful first-year students and the peer mentors who work with them. In my work, I would describe my teaching philosophy as wanting to create a community of care, but a community that also really values deep reflection. So for both things, for the care, for the reflection, this comes out in my course policies, the way I execute class discussions, and how I assess my course. So in terms of those course policies, I have an affirmation statement that we go over really clearly during our first couple weeks of class. This affirmation statement essentially says that I value all students who are in my class, and I expect for them to value each other and to respect each other as well. This doesn't stop there, however. It's not something we talk about once and then we never go back to again. We continually mention this course policy throughout our time together. And in addition, I also make sure students verbally know that I care about them. I'm not afraid to say, I'm so glad you all were here today. I really enjoyed our time together today, or whatever the phrase might be, just so that they're reminded that not only is this a policy, but this actually happens every time we meet and every time I talk to them. Another way that it comes out kind of in the class discussions is that I really value community builders. I really value my students getting to talk to each other, to use their voices together, and also just activities that have them work in small groups. So even if we're talking about a topic like time management, for example, the second and like hidden benefit is that they're getting to connect and to get to know each other as well. So I find that really important. In terms of assessment of community of care, this happens in two primary ways. The first is that I almost always have a reflection-oriented assignment where they reflect on what we talk about that week. One question I always have on this assignment is, how are you doing this week? And I've been so surprised how honest students are in these reflections. They'll share things like, I've had a death in the family. I just won a major award. I'm kind of bored this week, whatever it is. And then I can tailor next week's class fittingly. I wouldn't come in with a whole lot of hyper energy in a class period if everyone had just talked about how stressed or how sad that they were the prior week. I would make sure my tone was appropriate. And the other way that I do this is through a midterm self-check-in with students. So I ask them to kind of reflect on how the course is going, give me feedback, and then I actually use that feedback to make changes. And I tell them when I've made those changes. That's another way to kind of illustrate that I care and that I value what they have to say. To flip over to reflection out in so much of my course. The course syllabus itself is divided by questions so that students kind of find the question that matches what they're wondering about, and that's where the information is conveyed. So for example, how will I be graded in this class is the question that I use to divide the work on the course assignments. So they know questions are how they find their answers. They're practicing reflection simply by reading a syllabus. In the class itself, all the courses I teach are a lot about applying knowledge to a specific context. And so every class period has some amount of reflection or diving deeper based on something we're talking about. But not only do the activities in class themselves think about reflection, but I prompt them myself to think further. I am someone who's not afraid to answer a question with another question if it's the right context. Students have the urge to be able to think deeply in that way. And I'm also not afraid to ask thoughtful, deeper questions. I'm okay with silence if students need to think, and I'm okay with asking those deep questions. And finally, in terms of assessment, I mentioned a little bit ago that I do a weekly reflection assignment. And in that assignment, students are reflecting actively on a deeper level than they could do in class about what we learned. So it's always this moment of strengthening and deepening their learning. Thank you for listening to me talk about my teaching philosophy a little bit. And again, my name is Brent Weaver, and I teach at K-State.